Washington, D.C. hums with energy under the early morning sun. The political climate, tense as a stretched guitar string during the Trump administration, remains electric. Caroline Leavitt, at 27, the youngest White House press secretary in history, steps out of her car, her eyes filled with resolve. Today, she faces federal court for a public trial concerning allegations of abuse of power from the prior Biden administration. A chance to openly criticize Joe Biden, whom she and Trump's supporters view as a failure for America. Outside the high courthouse, Trump supporters wave banners and chant slogans, while police work to manage the growing tensions with counter-protesters. Before diving into the story, let us know where you're watching from, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on future updates. Judge John Hargrove, a man in his Z60s with silver hair and thin-framed glasses, takes his seat behind the bench, his expression unreadable. Appointed by Biden to protect his administration's legacy, Hargrove is now facing opposition from Caroline and Trump's camp, who aim to challenge his influence. With a sharp bang of his gavel, the room quotes, and he states, "Court is in session." His deep, authoritative voice fills the room. "We are here to address allegations of abuse of power linked to the previous administration's immigration policies." Hargrove briefly glances at Caroline, a subtle hint of displeasure crossing his face as she stands to speak. Caroline strides confidently to the podium, her high heels clicking sharply with each step, a silent declaration of her defiance. Though not a lawyer or an official witness as the White House press secretary, she is there to represent the Trump administration's position. Clearing her throat, Caroline fixes her gaze on Judge Hargrove before addressing the room. "The Biden administration has opened America's borders wide," she states, her tone cutting through the tension. "They've allowed millions of illegal immigrants to flood in, bringing crime, drugs, and strain to our communities. This wasn't policy, it was a betrayal." The courtroom stirs with murmurs, some reporters quickly taking notes, others whispering among themselves. Hargrove slams his gavel again. "Miss Leavitt," he interrupts, his voice firm. "This is a courtroom, not a soapbox. Stick to the specific allegations." Caroline remains unfazed, offering a cold, knowing smile, one that has been seen countless times on television. "I'm speaking the truth, sir," she responds, her voice steady yet defiant. "Biden's immigration policies are at the heart of these allegations, and I won't shy away from calling it what it is." Hargrove grips the bench tightly, narrowing his eyes. "I'll say it again, Miss Leavitt. Maintain order and respect in this court," he warns, his tone dangerously low. But Caroline stands her ground, leaning toward the microphone, her voice slightly rising. "I respect the American people, those who have suffered from the consequences of the previous administration's disastrous decisions. I'm here to speak for them, not to appease anyone in this room." A small cheer erupts from a corner of the audience, a group of Trump supporters who have managed to slip inside the courtroom. Hargrove pounds his gavel, his expression stern. "Silence," he commands, but the noise continues to build as the crowd outside chants, "Trump, Trump." Seizing the opportunity, Caroline locks eyes with Hargrove and calmly declares, "You can bang that gavel all day, but you can't change the truth." Her voice cuts through the room like a blade. "The Biden administration failed, and people like you, relics of that system, are only trying to prop up a collapsing legacy." The courtroom hums with tension, a few reporters quickly turning on their live cameras. Judge Hargrove rises from his seat, pointing a finger at Caroline. "Miss Leavitt, this is your final warning," he roars. "One more word out of line, and I'll take stronger measures." The room holds its breath as cameras focus on her. Caroline grips the podium's edge, takes a steadying breath, and prepares to deliver her decisive message. "I'm not here to stay silent," she declares, her voice ringing clear and sharp, cutting through the rising noise. "Joe Biden is a traitor, who turned America into a sanctuary for crime and illegal immigration." She pauses, letting her words settle in. "He wasn't a president, he was a catastrophic failure, and people like you, Judge Hargrove, are just tools defending that disastrous legacy." The courtroom erupts. Some Trump supporters in the audience jump to their feet, applauding and cheering, while others, mostly left-leaning reporters, shout, in protest. Hargrove slams his gavel down repeatedly, the sound loud and forceful like gunfire. His face is flushed with anger. Enough, he thunders, jumping to his feet, pointing directly at Caroline. Miss Levitt, you've crossed every line of decorum in this court. I hold you in contempt and fine you $100,000, effective immediately. His voice shakes with fury, but his eyes betray an intention to make an example of her. This is no place for slandering a former president or anyone else. He slumps back into his seat, breathing heavily, clutching the gavel as if it were his. Only anchor. Caroline doesn't flinch. Instead, she smiles, not a triumphant grin, but a cold smirk, the look of someone who knows they've just lit a fuse. She pulls her phone from her blazer pocket, switches to live stream mode on X, and holds it up. American people, she begins, her voice calm but powerful. What did you just witness? I'm being fined $100,000 for daring to speak the truth about Joe Biden, a man who sold out this country. This is proof that Biden's system is trying to silence us. The courtroom cameras swivel toward her, zooming in on her determined face. The live stream on X begins to spike. First 10,000 viewers, then 50,000 in seconds. Outside, the crowd hears her words through reporter speakers, their cheers swelling like a tidal wave. Trump supporters inside stand to applaud, while a small group of leftists boos. You're a wrecking ball, someone shouts from the crowd. Hargrove bangs his gavel again, but the noise spirals beyond control. Silence, he demands. I'll have everyone removed if order isn't restored. But no one listens. A reporter from the back corner shouts, Miss Levitt, will you retract your statement? Caroline turns, staring directly at the camera through the live stream. Retract? I'll never retract the truth, she responds, her voice unwavering, as firm as steel. Hargrove, now visibly enraged, points at a nearby bailiff. Record the ruling, $100,000, and Miss Levitt will pay before leaving. He glares at her, his voice trembling with anger. You think you can turn this court into a circus? I'll show you the cost of arrogance. Caroline doesn't respond directly. Instead, she leans into her phone, speaking to the live stream. See this? This is how they protect Biden, finding threats and trying to crush our voices. But I'm not afraid, and neither should you be. Viewership numbers surge past 100,000 as comments flood in. Caroline's a hero, smash Biden's system, and others. Inside the courtroom, a few lawyers exchange murmurs, questioning the legality of the fine. One whispers, $100,000 fine? Hargrove's losing it. A reporter leans over to a colleague. She just turned this trial into a political battlefield. But Caroline remains unfazed by the whispers. She stands tall, her gaze unwavering, daring Judge Hargrove to do worse. Outside, the pounding on the doors grows louder, and a police officer rushes in. Sir, the crowd's getting out of hand. We need backup, he reports. Hargrove breathes heavily, his hand trembling as he grips the gavel. He knows he has pushed things too far, but there's no turning back. Miss Levitt, he says, his voice dropping to a final, threatening tone. You'll pay for this, not just with money. Caroline raises an eyebrow, still streaming live. Pay. You're the one who'll pay when the American people see this system's true face. She turns toward the courtroom audience, lifting her phone higher. Who stands with me? The courthouse shakes with shouts from the crowd and the booming sound of Hargrove's gavel. But Caroline doesn't break eye contact with her phone. The clock reads 10 a.m., and she's just been fined $100,000 for calling Joe Biden a traitor and a catastrophic failure. Hargrove slumps back into his chair, his face darkening as he grips the gavel, his frustration evident. But Caroline doesn't. Give him a moment of peace. She raises her phone higher, her voice cutting through the small speaker. American people, this is our moment to rise. They fined me $100,000 for speaking the truth, but I'd rather pay than stay silent before this rotten system. The viewership on X surges, first to 250,000, then to 300,000 within seconds. Comments flood in. Caroline's our voice. Hargrove's Biden's lackey. Outside, Trump supporters hear her message through reporters' phones. their chants growing. Louder. Tear down the system. Tear down the system. They pound on the glass doors, their fury unrestrained. Inside, Trump backers rise to their feet, fists raised, while leftists yell back, "You're a disruptor!" Hargrove pounds his gavel relentlessly, his voice cracking. "Order, I demand an order!" But no one listens. The noise is out of control. Caroline turns to Hargrove, her eyes defiant. "You can find me," she says, her voice sharp as a knife. "But you can't find all of America. Hundreds of thousands are watching, and they see what you are. A defender of Biden's failed legacy. Each word she speaks intensifies the political fire she's igniting." Hargrove points at her, his voice trembling with rage. "Miss Levitt, shut up or I'll have you arrested right here." But Caroline only laughs louder, the sound echoing through the live stream. "Arrest me. Go ahead. You'll just prove me right." Viewership tops 400,000, and a reporter whispers to a colleague, "She just made Hargrove the villain, live." Meanwhile, a few blocks away at the Justice Department headquarters, Pam Bondi, former Attorney General under Trump, watches Caroline's live stream with steely eyes. Bondi has tracked Hargrove for months, and the DOJ has a thick file on him. Secret FBI reports reveal he illegally fined conservative officials in minor cases, blatantly favoring the left. Until now, the DOJ has held off, lacking a strong public trigger. But as Bondi watches Hargrove fine Caroline $100,000 and threaten arrest, she knows the tipping point has arrived. "This is the moment," Bondi murmurs, rising from her chair, her black suit exuding authority. She turns to an aide nearby. "Get Hargrove's arrest warrant, the one we prepped last week. Call the U.S. Marshals and tell them to be ready in 5 minutes." The aide nods and dashes out, phone already in his ear. Bondi strides to her desk, opening Hargrove's investigation file. She flips through the pages, which detail dozens of incidents, including unusual fines on conservative activists and dismissing evidence in lawsuits against Biden's administration. "He thought he was untouchable," Bondi mutters, pausing on a report that details Hargrove fining a Republican lawmaker $50,000 for contempt, without clear grounds. That ends today. She grabs her phone and calls the U.S. Marshals commander near the courthouse. "Hank, it's Bondi," she says, her voice resolute. Pam Bondi's voice is low but sharp as she speaks. "Hargrove just fined Caroline Levitt $100,000 for criticizing Biden and threatened to arrest her. We have an arrest warrant for abuse of power from the investigation. I want your team at the courthouse now." Hank crackles through the radio, his voice steady. "We're 3 minutes out, madam. Attorney General. Warrant's ready." Bondi glances at her aide, who returns with a signed paper in hand. She snaps the file shut, replying with urgency. "Move fast. I'm on my way." At the courthouse, Caroline remains steadfast at the podium, her live stream uninterrupted. "They can take my money," she tells her viewers, her voice cutting through the tension. "But they can't take our voices. Hargrove and Biden's system are trembling, don't you see?" A reporter shouts, "Miss Levitt, will you pay the fine?" Caroline smirks. "Pay it? I'll frame that receipt like a Medal of Honor so everyone can see the cost of truth." The crowd inside cheers, drowning out Hargrove's gavel. He stands once more, pointing at the bailiff. "If Miss Levitt doesn't quiet down, I'll order her arrest." But his words are cut off by the sound of the glass doors rattling from the pressure of the crowd outside. Bondi, now en route from the DOJ, steps into a black SUV with 3 security agents. She checks her watch. 3 minutes, she tells the driver, her voice icy. Hargrove doesn't know what's coming. As she opens her phone, she watches Caroline's live stream. Viewership past 500,000. Comments flood in, demanding justice and Trump's return. Bondi smiles faintly, not from joy, but knowing this is Trump's administration's chance to send a loud message. Hargrove dug his own grave, and Caroline will bury him. Back in the courtroom, Caroline raises her phone higher, her voice booming to millions of devices. "We don't bow to this system," she shouts. "They can threaten us, but we outnumber them. We're stronger." Hargrove, his face scarlet, yells back, "Enough, Miss Levitt." But before he can issue another order, the courtroom doors shudder, and Caroline stops speaking, turning her head. The room falls silent, all eyes swinging toward the doors. Then Pam Bondi strides in. Her presence commands the room, her sharp black suit and steady heels striking the wooden floor with authority. Behind her, 4 U.S. Marshals in black uniforms follow, hands on holsters, eyes scanning coldly. In Bondi's hand is the arrest warrant from the DOJ's covert probe into Hargrove. She stops in the aisle, her voice low but resonant. "Judge John Hargrove, I'm Pam Bondi, U.S. Attorney General. The department has evidence of your abuse of power and political bias across multiple cases. Your $100,000 fine on Miss Levitt today was the last straw. I'm ordering your arrest effective immediately." The courtroom freezes for a moment, then erupts. Trump supporters cheer, leaping to their feet, fists pumping. "Justice! Justice!" A few reporters shout, their cameras working to capture Bondi. And Hargrove in close-up. Hargrove stands, stunned on his bench, the gavel still in his hand, his mouth agape in disbelief. "What?" he stammers, his voice trembling. "This is an abuse of power. You have no authority to arrest me." But Bondi doesn't budge. She holds up the warrant, its bold red seal glinting in the light. "We have the authority," she replies, her voice like ice. "Your files, hundreds of pages, illegal fines on conservatives, bias in Biden lawsuits. You've gone too far for too long." Caroline, still live streaming, swings her phone toward Bondi, eyes alight. "See this?" she says, her voice clear. "Justice is here." Caroline yells into the mic, her voice ringing with triumph. "Biden's system is crumbling before our eyes." Viewership on X skyrockets, topping 600,000 with comments flooding in, praising Bondi as a legend and declaring Hargrove's downfall. Outside, the crowd hears through reporters' speakers, their cheers morphing into a tidal roar that drowns out the police sirens struggling for order. Inside, leftists protest fiercely, but Bondi remains unwavering. A lawyer shouts, "This breaks the law." But Bondi ignores him, signaling to the marshals. "Cuff him," she orders, her voice firm. 2 marshals step onto the judge's bench, each towering like a wall. Hargrove stumbles back, his hands shaking. As he drops the gavel, "You can't do this," he roars, but panic cracks his voice. "I'm a federal judge. I have immunity." One marshal responds, his voice low and steady. "Not anymore, sir. There's a warrant." They seize his arms, pulling him. From the bench, Hargrove struggles feebly, yelling, "This is a political conspiracy. I'll sue you all." But the cuffs snap shut with a sharp, cold click cutting through the room's chaos. Caroline lifts her phone higher, filming Hargrove's cuffing up close. "Justice wins," she cries, her voice brimming with triumph. "This is the day Biden's system pays." The crowd inside erupts once more, Trump supporters clapping wildly while some leftists rush out, decrying abuse and tyranny. Reporters' cameras shake as one whispers to a colleague, "Biggest story of the year. Hargrove arrested?" In court, Bondi stands in the aisle, arms crossed, eyes locked on Hargrove as he's led to the door. "You dug your own hole," she says, her voice low but audible to him. "Today's just harvest day." Hargrove, hands cuffed behind him, twists back to glare at Bondi and Caroline, eyes blazing with hatred but powerless. "You'll regret this," he hisses, but his voice fades as marshals shove him through the door. His footsteps blend with the cheers outside, and the door slams shut like a final punctuation. Caroline swings the live stream back to herself, breathing hard but holding her cold smile. "See that?" she tells the millions watching. "They can't stop us. Hargrove's finished, and this is just the start." Viewership breaches 700,000 and comments overflow, declaring Caroline as the Queen. Bondi steps closer to Caroline, placing a hand on her shoulder briefly but meaningfully. "Good job," she whispers just loud enough for Caroline to hear. "You just gave us the perfect reason." Caroline nods, pausing her live stream for a second to speak privately with Bondi. "I know they won't forgive me, but I don't care," she replies, her voice firm. Bondi gives a faint, rare but sharp smile. "They won't forgive me either," she says, "but we're not here to be forgiven. The courtroom is now a chaotic mess. Reporters darting around, spectators arguing, and security struggling to maintain order. A police officer shouts into his radio, "The crowd's breaking the doors, we need backup." But Bondi and Caroline stand in the eye of the storm, unmoving, like twin pillars. Bondi turns to the remaining marshals. "Take him away. I'll handle the rest," she orders, then glances at Caroline. "You done here yet?" Caroline smirks, raising her phone again. "Not even close," she replies, restarting the live stream. "The American people need to see this through." The federal courthouse doors slam shut after U.S. Marshals drag Judge John Hargrove out, the clank of his handcuffs still echoing in the air. It's been mere moments since Pam Bondi ordered his arrest for abuse of power, an act that ignites a political earthquake. Caroline Levitt stands at the podium, phone still live streaming, her eyes blazing with victory. "They want a war? We'll show them," she shouts into the mic, her voice booming across millions of devices on X, where viewership has soared past 800,000. Inside, the room explodes. Trump supporters leap from their seats, cheering wildly, fists raised, chanting, "Justice! Trump! Forever!" A middle-aged man in a red shirt yells, "Hargrove's history, now it's our time," Caroline declares, her voice ringing through the chaos. But the left doesn't back down. A young lawyer charges into the aisle, pointing at Caroline and Bondi, shouting, "This is blatant abuse of power. You're dismantling the legal system." Crashing shouts from both sides swell like waves, while reporters scramble, cameras shaking, to capture every second. A CNN journalist yells into her phone, "Hargrove just got cuffed. Go live." Another from Newsmax counters, "This is Trump's victory." Bondi stands in the aisle, still as a rock in the storm, her icy gaze sweeping the crowd. She signals to the two remaining marshals, "Keep order. No one leaves until I say." But her words are drowned out by the sound of shattering glass from the main doors. Outside, the Trump-supporting crowd, now thousands strong, pounds the glass, chanting, "Caroline! Caroline!" A sweat-drenched officer rushes in, yelling into his radio, "We've lost control. The glass is down. We need riot police now." Police sirens wail in the distance, blending with the crowd's roar into a chaotic symphony. Caroline swings her live stream toward the doors, her voice still sharp despite quickened breaths. "See this? This is the power of the American people. They won't bow to Biden's system." She raises a hand, rallying through the screen. "Stay calm, but don't stay silent. We're winning." Viewership breaches 1 million. Comments flood in. "Caroline's a legend. The system's terrified." A reporter side shouts, "Miss Levitt, what do you think of Bondi arresting Hargrove?" Caroline turns, smirking. "I think it's long overdue. Hargrove was a relic of a failed era, and today we swept him away." While Caroline keeps live streaming, Bondi steps near the doors, facing the crowd through the broken glass. A man waving a Trump 2025 banner yells, "Miss Bondi, you're a hero." She nods curtly and then turns to a nearby officer. "Hold them back. I don't want violence, but I don't want them silenced either," she commands, her voice low but firm. Outside, leftist protesters emerge, hoisting "Defend the Rule of Law" signs and clashing with Trump's side. Bottles shatter, and tear gas smoke begins to drift as riot police arrive. Just then, Caroline's phone buzzes mid-live stream. She glances at the screen. An X notification, Trump just tweeted. She laughs, showing it to her viewers. "Listen up," she says, brimming with excitement. "President Trump just wrote, 'Caroline and Pam, make me proud. This is America fighting for freedom.'" The room erupts again, cheers drowning out the sirens outside. A supporter yells, "Trump knows everything." Caroline nods, returning to the live stream. "That's right. The president's watching, and he's with us. Hargrove's lost, Biden lost. This is our win." But not everyone agrees. Left-leaning reporters swarm Bondi, shouting questions. "Miss Bondi, what evidence do you have to arrest Hargrove? Is this political revenge?" Bondi turns her gaze like a blade. "Evidence? The DOJ has hundreds of pages on Hargrove's abuses. Illegal, fines, and political bias. Today was the breaking point. She pauses, her voice dropping. Revenge? No. This is justice. A reporter presses, but arresting him in court, how's that justified? Bondi smirks. When a judge oversteps, we don't wait. We act. The chaos inside now spills across the courthouse. A security officer yells, "Everyone sit down!" But no one listens. Spectators from both sides lunge into arguments, one man nearly punching another before being dragged back. Caroline steps off the podium, still live streaming, approaching Bondi. "Madame Attorney General," she says, her voice carrying through the phone. "The people want to know what's next." Bondi turns, staring into Caroline's lens. "Next," she replies, her voice cold. "Clean the system. Hargrove's not the only one. We'll find and remove every remnant of that rotten setup." Tear gas smoke slowly clears outside the federal courthouse as riot police push the crowd back. But the aftershocks of Judge John Hargrove's arrest still rattle Washington, D.C. It's been a day since Pam Bondi cuffed him, and America hasn't recovered from the shock. Caroline Leavitt stands in the White House briefing room, camera flashes popping as she steps to the podium. Her navy blazer is as crisp as when she faced Hargrove. Before her are dozens of reporters, but her eyes fix on the framed $100,000 fine. Seat, now hanging on the wall like a medal of honor, Caroline is ready to claim victory. "Yesterday," she begins, her voice ringing through the mic, "they wanted me silent. They fined me $100,000 for daring to speak the truth about Joe Biden, a man who sold out America. But I made them silent." The reporters stir, some raising hands to question, but she gestures for them to wait. Judge Hargrove was a symbol of the corrupt system Biden left behind. Yesterday, thanks to Attorney General Pam Bondi, he was hauled off his bench in handcuffs, and that's just the start. Applause erupts from Trump supporters at the back of the room, some holding phones live streaming her reaction on X. At the DOJ headquarters, Bondi sits in her office watching Caroline's briefing on a large screen. Before her is a stack of new files, lists of other judges suspected of abuse and political bias like Hargrove. After the arrest, she launched the Justice Cleanup campaign, vowing to purge Biden's system remnants from the legal framework. A DOJ press release details that Hargrove has been indefinitely suspended, awaiting trial for abuse of power and charges tied to dozens of past cases. Bondi smirks, nodding to an aide. "Send this list to the FBI. I want results by next week." She orders, her voice cool but certain. Back at the briefing, Caroline holds up the framed fine receipt, flashes popping relentlessly. "This isn't a loss," she says, her voice brimming with pride. "This is our win, mine, President Trump's, and the millions of Americans who watched yesterday's live stream." She pauses, staring into the room's central camera. Over 1.5 million people saw Hargrove fall, and they know who's on their side. A Fox News reporter shouts, "Miss Leavitt, will you pay the fine?" Caroline laughs, setting the receipt down. "Pay? No. I'll keep it to remind everyone of the cost of truth, and the price the system pays for trying to silence us." Outside the briefing room, Trump supporters gather on Pennsylvania Avenue, waving "Caroline, Voice of Freedom" and "Bondi, True Justice" signs. Right-wing media hails the arrest as a historic win. A Breitbart piece declares, "Caroline and Bondi crushed Biden's legacy in 7 minutes." Meanwhile, the left lashes back. MSNBC runs a headline, "Bondi's abuse judge arrest attacks rule of law." Leftist lawyers file an emergency suit in higher courts, alleging Bondi breached procedure. But it stalls for lack of a presiding judge, an unintended fallout from Hargrove's case. Caroline presses on with the briefing, her voice a war cry. Yesterday, President Trump tweeted, "Caroline and Pam make me proud." That's not just praise. It's a call. We won't stop until every corner of this system is cleaned. She points to the receipt. "They wanted me scared, but I'm not, and neither should you be. We won this round, and we'll keep winning." Applause roars again, drowning out a leftist reporter's shout, "Aren't you worried about retaliation?" Caroline smirks, locking eyes with him. "Retaliation? Let them try. I'm ready, and so is this administration." At the DOJ, Bondi switches off the screen, turning to her team. "Hargrove was the start," she says, her voice low but sharp. "We've got 12 more judges. I want their files on my desk by morning." An aide nods briskly and exits. Bondi grabs her phone, texting Caroline, "Great work. Keep the pressure on." Knows Hargrove's arrest isn't just a personal win. It's a signal nationwide that Trump's administration won't tolerate what they call the old system. Back at the White House, Caroline wraps the briefing amid applause and flashes. She steps off the podium, fine receipt in hand, and heads to her office. On her desk, her phone lights up with Bondi's message. She smiles, placing the receipt beside a framed photo of her with Trump on the campaign trail. "They thought they could stop us," she whispers to herself, "but they don't know how strong we are." She opens X, seeing her followers surge over. 5 million since yesterday. A top comment reads, "Caroline, you're our hero." She nods, knowing this victory isn't just here. It belongs to the Trump movement. A week after Judge Hargrove's arrest, Washington, D.C. still simmers with tension, but Caroline Leavitt has emerged as an untouchable conservative icon. From her office as White House press secretary, she gazes out at the city, sunlight catching on the framed $100,000 fine receipt mounted on the wall, a symbol of defiance that marked a turning point. Hargrove remains suspended, awaiting trial, while Pam Bondi's justice cleanup campaign gains momentum, targeting dozens more judges accused of political bias. Right-wing media has crowned Caroline the voice of freedom, with millions across X hailing her as the young woman who dared to topple a legacy with truth. One viral post calls her the girl who brought down the system with a microphone and a mission. The left continues to condemn the arrest, labeling it authoritarian, but their voices are lost in the roar of rising support. Trump tweets again, "Caroline is the future. We won't stop." She smiles as she reads it, knowing her place in the administration is no longer just secure, it's solidified. Caroline turns back to her desk, eyes blazing with resolve. "They haven't seen anything yet," she whispers, brushing her hand over her phone, already gearing up for the next battle. Hargrove, she knows, was only the beginning. Together with Bondi, she's helped usher in a new era, one where remnants of the old system no longer belong. From this point on, she won't just be speaking for President Trump, she'll be carrying the voice of a whole movement. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The story of Caroline Leavitt's $100,000 fine for denouncing Joe Biden and Pam Bondi's arrest of Judge Hargrove reflects the stark polarization shaping America today. In this narrative, public disputes aren't merely clashes of opinion, they're battles for control and narrative. Much like the real-world divide between conservative and liberal factions, the clash between Trump loyalists and leftist protesters outside the courthouse mirrors a fractured political landscape. Caroline's viral live stream, watched by millions, recalls the transformative power of modern social media, where platforms like Twitter can turn a single legal event into a nationwide movement in moments. Bondi's bold move, backed by evidence from prior investigations into Hargrove's conduct, taps into a growing public mistrust in the judicial system, echoing concerns surfacing in debates over the current U.S. Supreme Court. The lesson here? In a polarized nation, conviction paired with digital strategy can turn adversity into a rallying cry. Caroline didn't just resist Hargrove, she redefined the narrative, turning a government fine into a symbol of truth and courage. She proved that in this era, it's not just about speaking out. It's about how, when, and where you speak. And yet, passion alone isn't enough. As Bondi's approach shows, real change also demands preparation and proof. In today's America, standing firm for your beliefs is only part of the equation. Doing it with substance ensures your voice doesn't just echo, it endures. If you want to keep following victories like Caroline and Bondi's fight against the old system, hit subscribe. Now, thanks for standing with us, and we'll see you in the next video where justice keeps rolling.